Hey guys, I want to talk about the Nolan Wells case one more time because something just occurred to me. Now, I want to mention a couple of things before we get started. I have these cones set up, and you can see that it goes quite a ways. So let's just imagine, just for the sake of argument, that Horn Island is, a place where a lot of people are partying and having fun. There's a lot of boats out there. But here's one thing that we have to understand. Horn Island isn't a place where you necessarily dock a boat, meaning you pull up and there's a place for you to pull your line and you chain up your boat or you rope your boat down. What typically happens at Horn Island is you come out, you drop anchor, and you swim on to the island. So you got to get out of the boat and get in the water and swim in a little bit. So you need to be able to swim for that, just to get on the island. So we know Nolan was on the island, so obviously he can swim, whether he was swimming with a vest or whatever. I'm not saying that it was because I don't know. But here's the thing. I want to discuss for a minute the fact that this young lady named Katie was the last person to actually see Nolan alive. So here's the thing. She says that after she finished chit-chatting with Nolan, he told her that he was going to go back to the boat and be with his friends, right? And on the other hand, we have the friends telling us that Nolan told them that he was going to go hang out with Katie. So here's the thing. Both things can't be true. So here's what I'm asking you guys. Let's say, for example, Nolan and his shipmates are at this cone right here. They're at this cone right here. Everybody's kind of bouncing around in the water. Some people on shore, some people in the water, whatnot. And he's chilling over here with Katie. He can tell them from here, hey guys, I'm going to hang out with Katie. And that would be cool because it would be close enough for them to hear. And then he could go on and do whatever he wanted to do with Miss Katie. But there should have been a conversation because we know that if they left, they were trying to leave at 3:30. If they left the island and they left Nolan behind, now he doesn't have a ride, or he would have to arrange a ride with someone. So it's very important to understand that that typically would require some type of communication and conversation. Hey guys, I know you're having trouble with your village pump on your boat, but I'm gonna hang out with Katie a little while and I'll get a ride back with, Fred Flintstone, or whatever the case may be. You gotta have a conversation because you wanna know how your bro's getting back. And also, from everything else that whoever is the captain of the boat needs to know what's going on with the people because he's responsible for them according to maritime law, which is the law on the water. So there was some responsibility from whoever's running the boat to make sure that, Nolan officially is not riding with them and, they kind of know where he's going to be, know who he's going to be with because there's some level of responsibility that goes with him being a passenger on their boat. That being said, Nolan has some type of conversation with them. This is scenario one. And he just lets them know, hey, I'm going to be hanging out with Katie, so forth and so on. And I'm not riding back with you guys. They say, hey, okay, that's fine. We'll catch up with you later. Let's say it happened like that. For it to happen like that, Nolan has to be close enough to the boat and to his shipmates to let them know what his plans are, right? Because he can't be all the way down there with Katie, all the way down to where you see those two red cones. He can't be all the way down there with Katie when he decides, he's going to hang out with her and not ride back, because then he doesn't get a chance to have a conversation and they don't know what's going on. And they said they tried to convince him to ride back with them. That tells you that they had some type of conversation, right? And some of you might be wondering why I said Nolan can't be down there and his shipmates way up here. And that's because I need to find out where these conversations happen, because when I tell you Katie's version of the story, she's going to make it sound like, or what it sounds like from her version of the story, is they were hanging out way down there where you see those double pylons. And then Nolan told her on his own, hey, I'm going to leave you and I'm going to walk back or swim back or teleport back, or however he got from down there where those two cones are all the way back up here to where the boat is. So it's very important to understand from them who was Nolan talking to when he was talking to his shipmates, and told what person specifically, or either he was talking to all of them at the same time, which means that conversation happened where the boat was or very close to the boat or whatever the case may be. Who was he talking to, or what type of conversation did they have? Interview each one of those guys and see what they say about that particular conversation, and your lie or your discrepancy, if there is one, will be exposed. Leaving them alone. If you go down here to Katie, and Katie's way on down here by these double pylons, where you see Timmy down there, if Katie is way on down here by these double pylons, she's been hanging out with Nolan, how long was she hanging out with Nolan? Was it 5 minutes? Was it 10 minutes? Was it 15 minutes? And is Nolan someone that she knew? You know what I mean? She knew him from school or wherever. How did they go to just hanging out in such a significant fashion that Nolan decides to stay with her instead of deciding to stay with his shipmates? That's a little odd. He has to know her to some degree for him to just decide, oh, I'm going to hang out with her. I'll catch a ride back with her, and, feel totally comfortable that, that was going to work out. So, the other thing that I wanted to know, and I hope I don't lose my train of thought, is Katie is saying that Nolan was down here with her and he just decided, he's going to be with his shipmates. So that means Nolan walked from down there where you see those double pylons all the way back to the boat. Are you telling me that no one on the island saw a 6'1" black guy with no shirt with a big afro walking from all the way down there after hanging out with a white female in Mississippi? That no one saw him hanging out with her? No one saw him walking all the way back over here to get on this boat? And remember, if he did walk from all the way down here and eventually get in the water and swim to this boat and get on the boat, and then they ride a couple of minutes, realize they got a problem with the village pump, and then the Coast Guard comes, and then they realize it's only 3 people on the boat instead of 4, where did Nolan fall into water, or whatever the case may be? So these are the conversations that you have to have. You have to know specifically from Katie how she met Nolan, where she met Nolan. Did she meet Nolan at his boat, or was Nolan already walking the beach, hanging out with groups of people, and was he way down here when she met him? Did she ever share the same space with Nolan and his shipmates? Was she up here when Nolan decided to tell them that he was hanging out with her for the day? It doesn't really sound like the shipmates know Katie like that, but they did know her name. I believe they knew her name. They said he's hanging out with Katie. So I just wanted to bring up those two things. But if you just have those conversations and make those guys be very specific as to where they met. Did you meet up here by the boat? Or did you meet Nolan as he was wandering Horn Island and he's way down here somewhere, and you just maybe randomly bumped into him for the first time in your life and y'all decided to hang out a little longer? Or, you hung out with him for the first time, you met him or whatever, hung out 15, 20 minutes. He's like, cool, I'll chat with you later. And he walks all the way back up by himself, back to his boat area, and he disappears and has us discussing it on YouTube like we are now. So these are the conversations that investigators must have with Katie and with Nolan's shipmates. You got to know where Nolan met Katie. Did he meet her at the boat? Or did he meet her as he was just walking around wandering Horn Island? Where was Katie when she separated from Nolan? Was she back up here at the boat or close to the boat? Or was she way on down in some, part of the island where not a lot of people were hanging out, or whatever the case may be? Maybe a lot of people had decided to leave early, but it should have been a lot of commotion, should have been a lot of people moving around, and it should have been easy to see either Nolan hanging out with her or either Nolan walking back and trying to get into this boat that was not working properly. And normally, if a boat is not working properly, you probably ask some other people there, hey, this village pump on this boat's not working right. Do you know anything about this? Can you help me with this? Boaters are like that. They're not gonna just watch a couple of kids try to make it 10 miles back to the mainland with a village pump that's not working, because they would know, hey, this is probably not a good idea. You might want to call somebody. You might want to do this. You might want to do that. Try this, try that. So just knowing those couple of things can make things a lot easier for Nolan's family, can really wrap up this investigation. And by now, you should have a couple of autopsy reports. You have the original one and you have the independent one. Those people know by now whether Nolan drowned or not. So for them to just be dragging their feet, I know they said they wanted to do it after the memorial service, which is tomorrow, but for them to just be dragging their feet pretty much and not letting anyone know, okay, this was an accident, or okay, this was something that we have to really look into and discuss further, we got to know. And the FBI is only involved because Horn Island is federal property. They're not involved just because this is an investigation that they're interested in. So again, where was Nolan and where was Katie when they were having their conversation, their chit chat that was so significant that she wanted to hang out with Nolan and he wanted to hang out with her for the rest of the evening, or for a good portion of the evening? Did she just meet him, or had they known each other a while? And if that wasn't the case, when they separated, where exactly on the island were they standing when they went their separate ways? Because that's a long distance. Down there where you see that last pylon, if the boat's docked down there and they're hanging out down here, this is too far for me to let these guys know over here, hey, I'm not coming back to the boat. I'm hanging with this chick. We're going to do what we do, and I'll catch up with you guys later. That's a long distance. So did Nolan walk up there and tell them that? Did he swim up there and tell them that? How did they understand from Nolan that he wasn't going to get back on the boat, that he was going to hang out with Katie? Same thing with Katie. Katie, if you and Nolan were hanging out together, how do you explain the fact that Nolan went his separate ways all the way back down there to the boat, and you went your separate ways back, around there somewhere, and you never look back, you never saw Nolan again in his life, we need some answers. But definitely these are the questions that you got to have answers to if you want to end this investigation. You got to talk to these people separately and make them tell you exactly where they were when they had these conversations about Nolan was staying or Nolan was, hanging out with Katie. That right there would do it in a nutshell. All right, thanks you guys. Have a good one.